Welcome to everyone gathered here tonight for these election hustings for the Derby North and Derby South constituencies. We're gathered here as people from across those constituencies and probably maybe a bit further afield as well, from people of faith groups in the city and people of no faith at all. And I want to extend my warmest welcome to you all. We're all here because you and our candidates all care about this city of Derby and these two constituencies. So tonight we will put questions to each candidate, who will have 90 seconds to respond to each question. All the questions are based around what each candidate would do in that particular area for the city of Derby. And where it's been possible, we've referenced particular Derby issues. I want to start by thanking the candidates or their representatives for their time this evening, which is warmly appreciated. You come from a vast array of political ideologies and parties, but you all share a commitment to public service and representing the interests of the people gathered here. And for that common thread in our humanity this evening, we thank you for your attendance. The candidates have been briefed that the answers are limited to 90 seconds. On the sun-drenched screen above me, there is a timer, as there is on the monitor, that the candidates can see. And I will unfortunately have to cut people off after the 90 seconds, or 1 minute 30, has finished, to ensure that everyone gets a level playing field. We'd ask the candidates not to use any divisive language and to focus on what your party would do for the city of Derby. Each candidate will introduce themselves to you with an opening 90-second statement, and if time allows at the end, we will invite the candidates to offer a general concluding statement. Afterwards, and indeed throughout, there are refreshments at the back, and you're welcome to avail yourself of those, and the candidates and representatives will be around for you to engage with. There were more questions than we could possibly put to candidates. And so we've had to exercise an editorial of the questions, but they hopefully cover all areas of public life. But you still have the opportunity afterwards in informal conversation to put your own questions to the candidates. And all being well, we'll let these good people go home at 9:30. All the better, hopefully, for your engagement and the conversation. Throughout the evening, we're going to go from your left to your right, and so we're going to be starting the introductory statements and then each question with Catherine and concluding with Chris. Can I ask you to show your appreciation for the candidates? Tonight has not been arranged by an employed team, it's been arranged by volunteers. And I would like to express my appreciation to the volunteers who've really done all the logistics and the legwork and the communication and publicity. And if you could show them your appreciation, I'd be grateful. And with that, Catherine, might I invite you to make your opening 90-second statement?
I'm Catherine Atkinson. I'm Labour candidate for Derby North. I've been a barrister for 17 years. I live in Chester Green. I have 3 children at local school. And I hope that my actions show what I stand for. Before we moved to Derby, we lived in Ilkeston, where I fought campaigns to successfully protect care homes from closure, to keep Long Eaton Fire Station open, and fought to try and protect the services at Ilkeston Community Hospital. In Derby, I helped lead the campaign to save Ashgate Nursery School from closure. I went with rail workers from Alston down to Parliament to lobby for work to keep them going. And for the last 2 years, I've been campaigning to stop the sewage dumping in the River Derwent and Markeaton Brook. I've been knocking on doors all year round for years. Because for me, if you want to represent people, you need to listen. You need to understand what matters to people. For me, people have said that they want change. And I hope that with me, you will see change towards a fairer, greener and safer Derby. Thank you.
Thank you. Emily.
Hello, I'm Emily Lonsdale and I'm a local councillor for here in Derby. So I represent the Liberal Democrat Party, but I am not actually the candidate today. I'm here representing John Sweeney, who can't be with us today. But Liberal Democrats in Derby believe that this city matters, that it deserves investment, that it deserves just the love of the whole nation, because we are a central city in this country, and we really matter. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Emily. Brevity appreciated. Jamie.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. And good evening, everybody. My name is Jamie Mulhall, and I am the Conservative Party's candidate for Derby South. So a little bit about me. I work in project management at Rolls-Royce. I live in Alveston, and Derby South is my home. How have I ended up here today as a candidate for Derby South? Well, to put it bluntly, conservatism for me is a cause and not a career. It is the cause of equality, of opportunity, of liberty, of king and country, and of public service. So hopefully tonight I will be able to demonstrate to you why I believe that the Conservative Party deserve to be re-elected at this general election, and why we can move forward to the next phase of Conservative renewal.
Thank you, Jamie. Timothy, or Tim.
Yeah, Tim normally. But
Thank you.
Hi, so I'm Tim Prosser. I'm an engineer. I'm co-founder of Reform Derby, and I'm standing for Reform UK in Derby North. So I'm a city councillor, and I'm also a Christian who many years ago used to volunteer at the Padley Centre, but have more recently assisted with the local food bank, and I'm on the boards of Community Action Derby and the Livershire Trust. And I'm here to represent the people of Britain who have been so absolutely betrayed by successive governments over the last 20 years. This country no longer works for the average person, whether it's housing, health, schooling, or finances. Never in recent history have we seen so much grinding poverty, ill health, and complete disregard by the mainstream political parties. And I'm here to say enough is enough. So this has to stop now. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Sam.
Hi there, my name's Sam Ward, and I'm here representing the Green Party. Now, I live in Mackworth, just to let you know, but I think it's pretty obvious from the general mood of the country and from opinion polls that the Tories aren't going to be winning this election. Now, what this means is that you have an opportunity to be voting for a party that you truly believe in, and the Green Party are a party that really understands the investment needs of the country, the investments we need in our NHS, into our healthcare, into our communities, into our infrastructure, into our industries. We're a party that believes in those with the broadest shoulders, that they should be paying their fair share in tax. We believe in ending child poverty by starting with simple things like ending the two-child benefit cap. And we want to see investments in our industries. We want to be supporting companies like Alstom and Rolls-Royce. We want to see nationalisation of our railways, so you've got the opportunity to work and travel across the country without being held back by exploitative and expensive train tickets. And we want to ensure that we can get more green voices into Parliament, so we could be pushing the government to be more ambitious, to be more forward-thinking, to not do the minimum, to do the absolute maximum, be a progressive and changeful country. A vote for the Green Party is a vote for change, and it's a vote for the opportunity for Derby to be the green heart of this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. And Chris, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, Chris Williamson, Workers' Party candidate. I'm Derby born and bred. I was a councillor in Derby for 20 years, former council leader, Member of Parliament for Derby North for 2 terms from 2010 to 2015 and from 2017 to 2019, and indeed a shadow minister, shadow fire and communities minister in both those parliaments that I was a member. Joined the Workers' Party after being in the Labour Party for 44 years. I felt the Labour Party had really lost its way. I was suspended from the Labour Party. People may have seen this on bogus allegations. of anti-Semitism, but I'd spent my life fighting racism and anti-Semitism, and I was really penalised, I think, for speaking up for the Palestinian people. And one of the key priorities for the Workers' Party is to oppose wars and to certainly support the Palestinian people and definitely oppose the arms sales to Israel, which are being used, British arms this is, being used to commit a genocide. We want to put the working class first. Britain is an incredibly wealthy nation. There is no excuse, no reason why anybody in this country should be experiencing poverty and deprivation. And so our key priorities are to support our public services, to support British industry, to end poverty and deprivation. And as I say, use the power of the sixth biggest economy in the world to create a good society.
Thank you, Chris. The questions we've refined, but they've come from people, including people here tonight who have submitted them. So we hope you recognise something of the interests and curiosity politically you've come here tonight with. And we're going to go into those questions now. Last Sunday, just gone in the church, was Sanctuary Sunday. In what ways are the UK and Derby still a place of welcome and sanctuary? Catherine.
I think Derby has a really positive story to tell on this, and I want to pay tribute to the number of organisations which are doing such incredible work to ensure that we are a place of welcome. For my part, in December 2021, I organised a warm welcome campaign for Derbyshire refugee solidarity, and I was supported by Derbyshire Fire and Rescue Service and places like the Erewash Valley gymnastics clubs and churches and gurdwaras and mosques to bring together 1,000 Christmas presents of warm hats, gloves and scarves to give to refugees. But nationally, we face a huge backlog of asylum claims, and we have people stacked up in hotels, which has cost £8 million a day. And so far, we've spent £370 million on the Rwanda scheme. Labour want to use that money and be able to employ 1,000 more Home Office staff so we can process claims, so we, where they fail, can have the people removed, and where we can actually ensure that we aren't having people in limbo. But we do need to stop the organised criminal gangs that are people trafficking. And we want to return to a system that the public have confidence in. So we will be utilising and creating a new border security command with MI5 and counter-terrorism powers. We want to be a secure country, but one that provides sanctuary. We need to provide sanctuary for those who are fleeing persecution and war. We can do both.
Thank you. Emily.
So, Derby, we can be proud of our welcoming nature. This is one of the most welcoming cities that I've ever lived in, and I've lived in quite a few. And yet, nationally, people are not made to feel welcome here in this country at times. And that is particularly the case for people who are fleeing, people who are some of the most vulnerable people in the world. Liberal Democrats are going to create safe, legal routes into this country, and that is how we stop those criminal gangs. We take away the people that they're preying on, basically. We're going to scrap the Conservatives' Rwanda scheme, which has cost the taxpayer a horrendous amount of money already and produced nothing. We are going to lift the ban on asylum seekers not being able to work, so that they can have the dignity of being able to come to this country and contribute to the country that has given them sanctuary, because they love us too. When someone gives you sanctuary, you want to help them. So people who come here will be able to find a job and work and contribute when they are ready. Yeah, we want to work closely with Europe and all the different organisations to make sure that everybody is on the same page as well. So that is how the Liberal Democrats is going to make this a much more safe place for people who are coming here seeking sanctuary.
Thank you, Emily. Jamie.
Well, thank you very much. Well, look, I think Derby and the United Kingdom, we have an awful lot to be proud of what we've done over the last couple of years. We are, without a doubt, one of the most welcoming cities, I think, on our island, and I think we're an incredibly tolerant and open nation. So just think about what we've done over the last couple of years. When communist China started to repress the citizens of Hong Kong, we gave 70% of that territory's population, 5.4 million people, the right to come and move and live and work in the United Kingdom. And hundreds of thousands of them have taken up that opportunity and moved to the UK. And I think that is something that we can all be incredibly proud of. More recently, we've opened our arms to Ukrainian refugees who are fleeing Putin's disgusting war and invasion of that country. And I think that is something that Derby and the UK can also be incredibly proud of. And I'm incredibly proud of what these people are contributing to our society, to our national fabric. And I'm just going to finish with a quote. I'm going to slightly tweak it. It's from one of my political heroes, Ronald Reagan, who said that if we close the door completely to New Britons, our leadership in the world would soon be lost. And I think he's right.
Thank you, Jamie. I'd like to thank the candidates for their timekeeping as well. That's much appreciated. Tim.
So obviously Derby has an absolutely fantastic record on migrants, particularly refugees and people that really need our support. And we really, we really need to make that happen and continue. We have an awful lot of charity groups which are funded through all sorts of different people, which help these people and support, and it's absolutely fantastic. We do, however, in this city right now, have a bit of a housing crisis. So the council is struggling to house many of its own citizens. And what will happen if this continues is it will cause conflict. And in the last 2 years, 2.4 million immigrants have legally moved into this country. That is way out of control. And it means that we don't have the houses in this city and the space available anymore. And also the prices have risen dramatically. This causes dangers, and in Ireland we've seen riots where people have turned their anger on the immigrants, which should never ever happen. That is not an acceptable situation. So we need to have a sensible conversation about legal immigration, which will enable us to continue accepting the people that really need it and really need our assistance, because that is the most important thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Sam.
So I think Derby and the UK has got, it is a place that is very welcoming, and we provide the sanctuary to the people who need it. I think places like this are a prime example. It's people who give up their time and donate to be able, for the sole reason that they want to help and support people. And the UK should be very proud of that, and we should be supporting that as well. Now, we need to be doing everything we can to support people seeking asylum and who are fleeing persecution and fleeing war. And to do that, we need to make sure that we have safe routes into this country that are based on well-funded and efficient asylum processing centres. There are people in the world who need our help and need our support, and the reason why they're taking these dangerous routes across the channel on small boats and at the hands of criminal gangs is because the systems we've got in place to deal with those asylum claims is so inefficient. There's a massive backlog and it's just unsafe for them. What we need to be doing is, like I say, investing in clear, efficient and well-funded asylum processing centres so people can have a safe route into the country to be protected and to be looked after.
Thank you, Sam. Chris.
Well, all the panels agreed that Derby has been incredibly welcoming over the years. I remember as a young man the immigration into Derby from the Caribbean and from the Indian subcontinent. But it's not to say there weren't problems. I was one of the early first members of the Anti-Nazi League and confronted, indeed fought, fascists on the street when the National Front was on the rise in the 1970s. But I think the talk about illegal migrants and stopping the boats and so on is really focusing on a symptom rather than dealing with the cause. And what is the cause of people seeking refuge? I mean, who really would want to uproot and leave their home? Nobody in reality, or very, very few people, I think, where they're not extreme circumstances. And so as far as I'm concerned, indeed, as far as the Workers' Party is concerned, what we want to do is stop the reason why people seek refuge in the first place. And that means stopping these imperialist wars that Britain is involved directly in, or indeed in funding. For example, the genocide that's taking place in Gaza right now, which is being perpetrated with British arms. So that's the sort of thing that I think is really important, that we focus on ending the causes of people seeking migration into Britain, by ending the wars, and also stopping the ruthless exploitation by global corporations based in Britain, the self-same corporations indeed that are exploiting many workers in this country, which is why we have 14.5 million people in the sixth biggest economy in the world living in poverty, and many, many more in precarious employment. That's an outrage and needs to end.
Thank you, Chris. We wanted to come now to the issue of child poverty. And the question that we've put to candidates is this. Just a stone's throw from here is a parish that is ranked by the Church Urban Fund as 358 out of 12,239 areas for child poverty, meaning it is one of the most deprived parishes in the country. What is your party's strategy to intervene and take children out of this poverty? Catherine.
1 in 3 children in Derby North are living in poverty. And since the last election, we have seen living standards fall, which is the first time that has happened in modern history. We can all see that things have been going in the wrong direction. I think when I speak to other parents, I see how hard so many families are finding things. And the amount of doors that I've knocked on, especially through the last few winters, there are far too many people without their heating on. The last Labour government lifted over 2 million children and pensioners out of poverty. And it was policies like the Minimum Wage Act and Sure Start and Children's Centres that made such a difference to child poverty. I just wanted to flag 2 policies that I think would help tackle the appalling decisions that people are having to make, choosing between heating and eating. Firstly, the free breakfast clubs that Labour would put in every school, which is one of the things that would be paid for by removing the tax exemptions from private schools. And secondly, Great British Energy, which would be a taxpayer-owned company, energy company, that would have lower bills as well as clean, secure energy by 2030. And that would be paid for by a tax on oil and gas giants. But I do want to thank the churches and wider faith communities for the work they do with food banks and warm hubs. The Britain that I want to live in doesn't have food banks.
Thank you. Emily.
Okay, so child poverty, it's just not acceptable. I was a free schooled in as a child, and so I have been in a household when I was growing up where that decision had to be made, food or heat. So I have real personal experience of this, and no child should have to go through that stress and strain. It affects everything about their lives. Liberal Democrats agree with me, obviously, and we believe that to address that, we have to invest in the whole economy and the whole family. We have to take a whole family approach. We're going to give parents genuine flexibility by, in their early years, in early years childcare, by giving maternity leave to both parents and parental pay of up to £350 a week. So that will help with the early years issues. We're going to invest in schools. We're going to start fixing our broken economy so that people can get work that does actually pay a living wage, the real living wage, not what it's called now, so that you can't be in work and in poverty. That is what we're hoping to do.
Thank you, Emily. Jamie.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much. So one of the things that I'm most proud of that the Conservative government has delivered is that absolute child poverty has fallen in the previous Parliament. That's a fact. You can Google it, everybody. But what are we going to do in the next 5 years to support working families up and down the United Kingdom and here in Derby? So we're going to change how child benefits work. So we're going to move it towards a household model. So you have to be earning a combined total of £120,000 before you start to lose your child benefit. That will make families better off by £1,500. We're going to give everybody 30 hours of free childcare a week. That is going to save families £6,900 every single year. This is the Conservatives delivering for working families in Derby South, in Derby North, and up and down the country.
Thank you, Jamie. Tim.
Yeah, so, I mean, as we said already, child poverty is really family poverty, it's grinding poverty. And there are many groups in this city that support people with needs. But what we need is not groups supporting people with needs, but the government to do something about it, because these are funded by donations and the good of our heart, which is great, but it is a political decision that's put us in this position. We, as Reform, we're going to make work pay. So we want to raise the basic tax threshold to £20,000 so that those on low and middle wages get a real boost of finances so they can actually afford to pay their bills. And we also want to increase education options to help people out and help them make the most of the opportunities available. We are also going to increase funding to councils. We need to increase funding to councils. In the last Labour government, they brought in the ratcheting system, which reduced the funding to councils year on year. The Conservative Party have carried that on and ground it into a point where now the councils are completely broken and they are unable to support the services that we used to have and that we need. So what we need to do is fund our councils properly, and then we can remove the need for food banks, which, as I said, is a political decision, which is disgusting. Grinding poverty is the result of that, and we can do better. Thank you.
Tim, thank you. Sam.
Thank you. So I think it's absolutely disgusting that as one of the richest nations in the world, we have children living in poverty. And the Green Party will do everything that we can to end child poverty and do everything in our power to lift people out of poverty. Now, that begins with quite simple policies like increasing minimum wage to £15 an hour, introducing rent controls, giving public sector workers a pay rise. It also involves things like increasing universal credit by £40 a week, ending the bedroom tax, and ending the two-child benefit cap. There's simple things that can produce the world of good and do a huge amount of benefit to people who are living in poverty, to put more money in their pocket and to help them. What we also want to do as part of the Green Party is introduce something called universal basic income, which, looking at the time, I haven't got long to talk about it. So it's a fantastic idea. It's based on everybody in the country being given an additional piece of pot of money every single week to help pay for bills, to pay for the additional things they care about. And what I'll do, if you want to grab me afterwards, and we'll go through it all, because it's one of those things I could talk about for absolutely hours, but it's something that'll be a huge benefit to the whole country. Thank you.
Sam, thank you. Chris.
Well, the first thing I would say is that there needs to be a root and branch review of the social security system in this country, which is about the most parsimonious anywhere in Europe, and as we keep saying, in one of the richest nations on the planet. So that's the first thing. The Workers' Party is very committed to that revision in the social security system. We also are committed to an increase in the tax threshold, so take a lot of low-paid workers out of taxation altogether. But we also need to be investing, I think, in our public services to provide the necessary input and assistance to people who are struggling as a result of being on a low income. So input into social services and the other services, youth services and so on, which have been denuded of the funds that they need to actually provide the services for local people. And also, of course, huge investment in housing. That's in our existing housing stock, but also in creating new, additional, affordable, genuinely affordable housing. And we would like to see a renaissance in council housing. So I think all those things, together with a job guarantee scheme, so that everybody who can work should be given the opportunity to work, I think, would go a long way to alleviating the problems of poverty. And poverty is a political choice. We could eliminate it if we wanted to. And I think within the lifetime of a parliament, if we were ever to get a Workers' Party government, that was a goal that we would be able to achieve.
Chris, thank you. I'm very conscious we're sitting in a building filled with glass, and so please do avail yourself of the drinks at the back. Don't begin to feel unwell through all this heat that we're experiencing today. The next question relates to healthcare. Derby is the home of Florence Nightingale and nursing. What will you all do to support our local healthcare provision? Catherine.
My view is that the NHS doesn't just belong to us, it belongs to our children and our grandchildren and future generations. And we need to pass it on in better shape than we found it. We have 100,000 people on the waiting lists for Derby and Burton Trust. And I meet them every day. Everyone here will know someone on a waiting list. A couple of weeks ago, I visited Chris Taveras, who is a dentist in Littleover, because I wanted to find out what was going so wrong that the number one reason that we're seeing children in hospital is their teeth, is tooth decay. And the week before, I was at the Royal with Wes Streeting, who, if Labour win, will be the future Health Secretary, speaking and listening to medical students and staff. But like the last Labour government did, if Labour are elected, we will bring waiting lists down. And we will double the number of medical school places and scanners, and there will be 40,000 extra appointments a week, 700,000 extra emergency dental appointments. And it will be paid for by clamping down on tax evasion and non-dom loopholes. But my job, if I'm elected, is to ensure that Derby gets a fair share of the extra capacity to rescue and protect our NHS for the future and for future generations.
Thank you, Catherine. Emily, what would the Liberal Democrats do?
Okay, so isn't our history wonderful that we have Florence Nightingale, who was here and, started nursing from us, from our city and our county, and that's amazing. Liberal Democrats, believe that the NHS is so important to everybody, a service free at the point of need, where you can always access what you need to be well and healthy. That makes the whole society better. We are going to get everybody the right to see a GP for an emergency appointment within 24 hours and within a week if it's not an emergency. Not being able to see a GP, that is a problem that I hear about a lot in my ward in Littleover. Yes, I just can't talk to them. I just can't get through to them. I can't even get a telephone conversation. That is what the people are telling me. And they are the first step into getting onto those waiting lists that don't, that are so big, that Catherine's mentioned. So we are going to stop that bottleneck at the beginning for the GPs. And we have got that backed up by providing about 8,000 more GPs if we became elected. We want to introduce... that's it.
Thank you, Emily. Jamie.
Thank you very much. So I think the Conservative government have got a proud record on the NHS, record investment and funding, £180 billion, more doctors and nurses than ever before. But you're not interested in that. You want to know what we're going to do over the next 5 years. So let me tell you, we're going to recruit 92,000 nurses, 28,000 doctors. We're going to build and modernise 250 GP surgeries. We're going to build 40 new hospitals by 2030. We're going to expand pharmacy first, so it will deliver 20 million more GP appointments than there are today. These are things that the Conservatives have delivered and are going to deliver. But of course, there is only one political party on this stage that has ever cut the National Health Service, and that is the Labour Party in Wales.
Thank you, Jamie. I'll just remind candidates that we're going to refer to our own parties, otherwise I might have to give rights of response. Tim.
It's quite hard to refer to just my own party in this respect, because the Conservative Party did introduce a cap on training for staff, which has left our NHS now desperately short of staff all these years later. And the Labour Party built new hospitals, but under a PFI scheme, which has ripped the finances out of the heart of our NHS. They also made it possible for our GP surgeries to be bought by large multinational American corporations and introduced a full layer of profit into our doctors' surgeries that never existed before in their last term on office. Now, we've all seen the huge decline in our NHS, and the NHS is reasonably well funded, but what it isn't is making the most of those resources. And there are all sorts of complicated reasons for that. The NHS is also under incredible stress and increasingly hard-working conditions because the people are struggling. Right now, the NHS is suffering with 1,400 excess deaths every week compared to where we were in 2019, right? And nothing has been done to work out where these deaths are coming from and what on earth we're going to do about it. So reform is going to put in a proper review of how we've got to where we're at. We're also going to remove the cap on training, and we're going to invest in our doctors and nurses, and we're going to remove the basic rate of tax for all frontline care staff, which will give them a boost and help to retain them. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Sam.
Well, I think the long and short of it is that the NHS needs more money. It's been underfunded and undersupported for too long, and it needs that investment, and it needs that drive to be able to provide the healthcare that you guys deserve. So at the Green Party, we want to see more investment in the NHS. We want to ensure that you can see a GP within 24 hours if it's urgent. We want to ensure that you've got access to an NHS dentist. We want to reduce waiting lists year on year. And we also want to ensure that everybody in the NHS is getting a pay rise and a pay boost. That includes doctors and nurses. So the NHS is a place where people want to work for, people want to get trained up in, they want to stay in as well. And doctors and nurses aren't leaving for private consultancy because they can get a better salary and they know they'll be looked after and they'll be able to get they'll be able to put sort of food on the table. So we want to see investment, we want to hold on to our doctors, and we want to look after the staff that do a really hard job and look after the people of this country. What we also want to do for you guys as well is put £1.5 billion into primary care, so you get the day-to-day healthcare service that you provide, that you rely on, that you're not held back by waiting lists or waiting back for appointments, and you're getting the service that you deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Well, the first thing I'd say is there's a structural problem with the National Health Service, and that is the Health and Social Care Act, the 2012 Health and Social Care Act, which provides for the privatisation of the National Health Service. So the first thing I think that needs to be done is to repeal that legislation and to kick all of the privateers out of the National Health Service, because healthcare should be about delivering public service, should be delivering healthcare to people, not about generating profits for private healthcare corporations. So that's absolutely crucial, it seems to me. And we need to, I think, also be properly rewarding our NHS staff. I mean, we've had the junior doctors in dispute with the government for years now. They should be paid properly. All of the NHS staff need a proper pay rise. That's one of the reasons why they're struggling to recruit and retain people, is that nurses and doctors, maybe not so much doctors, but certainly nurses and administrative staff and ancillary staff are struggling to make ends meet. And as I keep pointing out, we are the sixth biggest economy in the world. And this is a political choice. And so what I think is clearly required is that repeal of that legislation, proper investment in the National Health Service, reward our NHS workers appropriately to ensure that we get the service that we all deserve. And the National Health Service really should be a jewel in the crown, and it was for many, many years, but it's really, really struggling now. And I think the intention is to ultimately completely privatise it, and that's why we have to absolutely resist that with every fibre of our body.
Thank you, Chris. Our next question concerns industry in Derby. I'm sure we can all agree that Derby is a world-class engineering city and a city of innovation, hosting a large variety of large and small businesses. How does this give us hope for the revitalisation of our city centre? Catherine?
Well, if Labour is elected, Rachel Reeves will be our Chancellor, a former Bank of England economist and the first woman in that role. And Rolls-Royce in Derby was absolutely the right place for her to set out the economic vision for the next Labour government. It was a defining speech in this general election campaign 4 weeks ago, because Derby's businesses are not just our pride, they are the pride of our country, and they'll play a huge part in Labour's industrial strategy. And rather than hope for a more prosperous city centre, Labour has a plan for it. So I put my hard hat on and I've been to the university's new business school that's being built, and the Beckerwell Performance Venue and the Market Hall, which will host lots of small businesses. But what businesses large and small are crying out for is stability after the 14 years that we've seen, including Liz Truss's mini-budget. Stability is our priority. And we would replace the business rate system so that we can level the playing field between our high streets and online giants and tackle empty shops. But we also need a safer city, which is why I'll be arguing for a fair share of the 13,000 new neighbourhood police that Labour are pledging. Our business is thriving, so people have more money to spend, a revitalised city centre, and one that's safe for all of us to enjoy.
Thank you. Emily.
Thank you. So I know that Derby is a home of engineers and engineering. I'm married to one of them. My husband works for Rolls-Royce, and that's why we love it here, because this is a place where those skills are valued. And we need the next generation coming up for that to continue here. So our investment in schools and education is where I'm going to focus on this. We are going to pour more money into schools and make sure that they are fit for purpose and producing children, young adults even, that are absolutely the right sort of young people going into these industries. And through that, there will be future investment into our city centre and all those things, because people will be more prosperous and able to get those jobs, those valuable jobs in Rolls-Royce and other companies in Derby. I went last night to the International Women in Engineering at Rolls-Royce and saw lots of young graduates coming through there, teaching younger girls that they should be in engineering too. And we have lots of policies that bring up young women into STEM stuff as well. So.
Thank you, Emily. Jamie, we're just going to pause briefly while we refresh your glasses.
Right, we're ready. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think Derby has a proud industrial and innovation history. You know, I can always remember a quote that Napoleon Bonaparte said about the UK, which was that we're an island of shopkeepers. And he meant it as an insult, but actually, I think that is actually the heart of what we are. We are an enterprising and entrepreneurial country, and I think that demonstrates what our city is as well. And I think, you know, the Conservatives have, again, a proud record of supporting small, medium and large businesses. We gave businesses an awful lot of support during COVID and through the energy crisis caused by Putin's invasion of Ukraine. But what are we going to do over the next 5 years? Well, we're going to keep corporation tax at a competitive level so that we have investment from abroad coming in, not just to the UK, but into Derby, into our city. We're going, in the budget that we just had, we had over 100 growth initiatives, particularly around full expensing, so it's easier to invest as a business. I think there's absolutely plenty to be proud of. Inflation is now down to normal levels. I I think it's quite important, though, that we don't just focus on the old heavy industries such as Rolls-Royce, but we actually need to start focusing on the new digital economy and AI. We have a road in Derby called Lara Croft Way. I think it's important that we don't forget that and that we look to the future and the future industries that are going to drive our economy forward.
Thank you, Jamie. Tim.
Yeah, so Derby's problem, the destruction of our city centre, the issues where we see so many vacant shops, is the result of two things. Derby's amazing success, where we have redeveloped vast areas of the city, Pride Park, and all the way on the old Courtaulds Chemicals site. That area is absolutely mobbed and full of businesses. And one of the reasons the city's empty is because all the businesses moved out of the city centre. So it is actually phenomenal success and poor planning. And what we need to do is find a way of bringing businesses back into the city centre. So the market space is dead because the assembly rooms is dead. We moved the buses out of the market square. That removed all the passing trade, all the little businesses, the little cafes, the shops that relied on people coming to catch the bus. All of those businesses have now collapsed. And the introduction of the Derby all those years ago has swallowed up all the main buildings. Now, a lot of this was foreseeable, and it's poor planning that's let it happen. I've lived in other cities. I was born and brought up in Derby, but I moved away for university. I lived in Southampton. And years before Derby did this, I watched exactly the same happen in Southampton. So it was predictable, and what we need to do is improve the council and make sure things happen. And I'm working to make sure that things like the Assembly Rooms project happens fast, but happens right, to the benefit financially and the actual benefit to the city, because we're in danger of actually just people profiting off that project. So, thank you.
Thank you, Tim. I'm a one-man crusade to fund the coffee shops of Derby. And with that, Sam.
So I love Derby. I love the city. I love the people. I love everything about it. I spent my entire life in Derby. And it's a fantastic place. I think it's absolutely brilliant that we are doing what we do to support local businesses and to support local independent shops. We need to be doing that. We need to be supporting Rolls-Royce. We need to be supporting Alstom. And we need to do everything we can to provide more investment and more funding for independent restaurants, bars, cafes, shop, and make the city centre a really exciting and buzzing place that people want to go into. What I want to see as well is more investment in arts and cultural and sort of music festivals that we have in the city centre as well, to get people into the city, to get people exploring the place, tapping into that talent that we've got into the city as well, of creative and interesting and exciting people. You know, a couple of years ago, I think it was about 7 years ago now, we did something called Q2 Festival. I think we did it for about 2 years in Derby, and it was absolutely fantastic. You had all these bars and restaurants open up, and all these cafes as well, open up, playing live music, people walking around, they were exploring the city, or listening to a bit of music there, walking out, listening to a bit of music there, and it was a really brilliant day. And we did it for 2 years and stopped. And then suddenly, you know, the city centre's quiet again. We've lost that culture. We've lost that excitement. I want to change that. I want to see that back in the city. I want to see more investments. I want to see us tap into the arts and the culture we've got here and really driving that forward.
Thank you, Sam.
The reason is actually linked to the first question, and that's because a lot of people haven't got money in their pockets like they used to have. So what we need to address, of course, is the grinding levels of poverty in this country. But I think there's also a failure of an economic ideology that's been pursued by successive governments since the mid-1970s. And neoliberal economic orthodoxy has been an absolute disaster, where it's put market actually at the top of all decision making. And that's seen as a consequence tens of thousands of jobs actually leaving Derby, millions of jobs actually leaving the country. And we therefore, it seems to me, need a different approach, a different economic agenda that ensures that we can retain those jobs in this country and, as I've said in response to some of the other questions, be investing in our public services and creating a vibrant economy to actually ensure that people have got those resources to keep the local economy in the city centre going. But I think I would also say that the council's been asleep at the wheel as well. I think that there's things more that they could have done actually to bring about a more vibrant city centre. And indeed, going back to the time when I was the leader of the council, we were embarking on a marketing strategy to bring destination retailers into the city centre. Unfortunately, with the vagaries close of the political cycle, we lost control of the council and those proposals were ditched. But those are sort of the policies, I think, that need to be revisited to address the concerns and the problems that we are faced with in the city centre.
Thank you, Chris. In the light of Pope Francis' declaration around climate change, what active steps will you make locally so that the next generation will have a more sustainable future? And we circulated a summary of Pope Francis' declaration to the candidates earlier this week. Catherine.
So from decarbonising aviation at Rolls-Royce to Alstom's hydrogen trains to the new Valent factory that will be built in Derby that is going to build heat pumps, Derby is leading the way when it comes to environmental innovation. And the net zero economy currently accounts for 9% of our local economy in Derby, which I think, with support, will only grow. And at a national level, Labour will drive towards cheaper, more secure energy, doubling onshore wind, tripling solar power and quadrupling offshore wind by 2030. And we'll have 3 new national forests. My children go to St Mary's, which is the greenest school in the UK, and I took Ed Miliband to see it. Ed Miliband leads on climate change and net zero for Labour, so that lessons can be learnt for other public buildings. And I want to see more blue regeneration around our river, biodiversity and rewilding, which is why I've been campaigning for 2 years against the sewage dumping that we've seen in the River Derwent. But you won't need to lobby me on the environment if I'm elected. My mother worked for CAFARD as a climate change campaigner for over 30 years, and she will ensure that Pope Francis's words are ringing in my ears.
Thank you. Emily.
Thank you. The one thing I knew about the Liberal Democrats before I was a Liberal Democrat was that we were solid on the green agenda. We had lots of green policies before they became the big thing to have. So we've always cared about this. The Liberal Democrats are going to we're going to stop sewage being put into our rivers and our waterways by banning water companies getting bonuses when they are still doing it. They shouldn't be getting any extra money when they are not meeting the needs of the population. We're also going to put a tax on sewage. We are going to replace Ofwat with a tougher new regulator to make sure that we have clean water and so much more. We want to have reduced down to net zero by 2035, and it's just there's so much in our manifesto that is green that I just can't say it all. So I'm going to stop there because those are the main things.
Thank you, Emily. Chip. Jamie.
Oh, look, I'm actually not going to make this party political, believe it or not. But I think we as a country we should be really proud of what we've achieved on climate change as a nation. We are the first major economy to more than halve our carbon emissions. No other country in the world has done that yet, but we have. The United Kingdom has done that. And that is, it's not just a green tick in the box for the government, but actually all of us collectively working together, because we all know that climate change is the biggest single issue that we face, not just as a nation, but as a world, right? It's going to affect every single person in this room. It'll affect our children and our grandchildren, and we've got to take it seriously. But what have we done locally? Well, it was the previous local Conservative administration that introduced the climate emergency at the local council. The council house is powered by green energy created by the Derwent. We're expanding cycle lanes across the city. These are things that I will continue to push for. I want to see the expansion of solar power across the city and wind energy. At a national level, if I was elected as the representative for Derby South, I would support investment and research and development of new green technologies such as small modular reactors. That is the future of the nuclear industry, and I think we need to get behind it right now and support it with everything we've got.
Thank you, Jamie. Tim.
So the biggest environmental harms that tend to be caused around the world are caused as a result of grinding poverty, where people are unable to do anything about it, or large corporate interests, where people are not interested in doing anything about it because they're looking at profit. Our government's been progressing both of those very well, which is not good for any of us. What we need to do is make sure that we follow the right science in the right way. Many years ago, the Indian government introduced a policy to try and reduce deaths and harm by poisonous snakes. And they asked people to bring in their poisonous snakes that they can find and capture, and they would pay them money. And what happened was the population found a way of making money, and they bred poisonous snakes. And when the policy was removed, they had more poisonous snakes than when they started. And unfortunately, that's my experience of much of politics. We need, therefore, to make sure we do it right. We have a problem with things like lithium batteries, which are a neurotoxin. Where it is mined, we have incredible environmental destruction, and many thousands of people have died, particularly in places like the Congo, which is also cobalt. This is being ignored, and we're shipping it over here en masse. We have no way of recycling this lithium, and within 10, 15 years, it will become our new asbestos. It will kill people in this country as it leaches into our environment and as it harms all of us. We have to be very careful to follow the right science and do the right job. Cheers.
Thank you, Tim. Sam, the Green Party.
Thank you. Well, I think as a member of the Green Party, I could probably talk about this for days, so I'll keep it short and sweet on this one. For the most part, at a national level, what we want to be doing is making sure we are investing and building a robust, renewable energy grid, so we can produce our own energy domestically, totally independent from renewable technologies, which provides you with the stability in your energy bills. It helps us to reduce our carbon footprint, so that we're producing green and renewable energy, and it ensures that our energy is protected from geopolitical events, and we're protected again from cost of living crises and energy crises. So that's at a national level. That's one of the big picture ideas. But in terms of Derby, I think one of the issues that Derby has is that it's set up in a way that it's essentially only really feasible to travel around the city by car. It's difficult to travel by walking around, bus routes are being cancelled, cycling is dangerous. So what I want to do is, firstly, we need to be funding public transport again. We need to be rebuilding those bus transports so people can have access to that. We also need to be looking at what's called active travel, which is changing the way our cities are set up and changing the ways our cities are looked at to make it easier for you to be to walk, to travel, to use your bike or maybe even a scooter across the city. So you're not reliant on cars. So you have that opportunity to be able to sort of take a safe route into the city that's better for you. It's better for your mental health. It's better for you because you get an exercise. You get to spend more time in the community, and it's better for everyone's carbon footprint as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Chris.
Well, there's so much that could and indeed should be done. When I was leader of the council, I set the ambition of making Derby a sustainable city by 2025. I think that was a realistic target. I don't think we're anywhere near achieving it now. But I think the things that we need to be doing are things like, for example, insulating everybody's home and indeed business throughout the land. And this needs to be supported with investment from government. That would actually eliminate fuel poverty and, of course, reduce harmful emissions into the atmosphere as well. I think another useful thing that could be done is to reforest the uplands throughout the country, in the Peak District and elsewhere in Britain. Because it's only so high you can continue to keep building flood defences. The flood defences in Derby have been increased at least 3 times in my lifetime, and they may need to be heightened yet again. But there's only so high we can build the walls. Wouldn't it be better to actually reforest the uplands? That would hold the water for longer and reduce the flooding downstream. And the final thing to say, because we could talk all night about this, is I think we do need to look at the some of the technological solutions. And I agree with the points I think we should be made, although I do have an electric car myself. But there are problems with that. And one of the things I think we could be doing, and actually building on Derby's reputation for engineering excellence, is to maybe develop hydrogen vehicles, no pollution from that, and would be, I think, a better solution perhaps than the electric cars that we seem to be moving towards right now.
Thank you, Chris. Well, thanks to the candidates for timekeeping. We've got 2 questions left, so I'm just going to give candidates notice that we will have time for 90-second concluding statements after the final 2 questions, just to give you an opportunity to jot any notes down for that. And that's an opportunity to make a closing statement, either in relation to a particular interest of yours or to respond in a non-divisive way to comments this evening. Next question. Parents in the city are acutely concerned for SEND, special educational needs provision, in mainstream and alternative provisions. How would you answer these concerns?
Well, I've mentioned our campaign to stop the Conservatives closing Ashgate Nursery School. That is a nursery school that has 40% of its children with SEND needs. And we do need more SEND provision, not less, particularly in Derby, where we have higher than average levels of neurodiversity. And the earlier the assessment and the earlier that support is put in place, the more likely that children will be able to stay in mainstream education. But at the moment, parents are having to fight at every stage of the process to get their children's needs met. And education, health and care plans, EHCPs, are being delayed for months. And children are stuck on waiting lists for services like speech and language support. And when councils refuse to fund EHCPs, parents are forced to go to tribunal. Now, 96% of those claims are successful, which I think tells you a lot. The system of SEND support has been broken and adversarial and is in need of reform. And Labour will look at that reform, but it will also fund early speech and language support, which is another policy that will be funded by ending the tax breaks for private schools. We need to increase awareness and support for autism and SEND. And if I am elected, I will work with local parents and carers and children with additional needs to make sure that any new Labour government gets this right.
Emily.
Okay. So this is a personal battle for me. I'm a parent of two SEND children, and one is waiting on diagnosis and the other one has his diagnosis. However, I had to go private to get that diagnosis. The waiting list was so horrendous and he was struggling so much, and I was fortunate that I was given a gift to be able to do that. That is not the experience of most parents. So we need to be tackling this through working with the doctors who do the diagnosis, and working with the local authorities. This is a local issue. We need to be funding our local councils properly, and that is something that the Liberal Democrats are going to do. We are going to stop the taking away of money and expecting the same services from local authorities, and we are going to work with them closely to take away the adversarial type of working between council and parents, because ultimately that's where your EHCP will come from, is the council. Then we will also be investing in education so that teachers and schools are the right places for the children to be, because they are that right place.
Thank you, Emily.
Yes,
So this is a topic that is close to my heart. So I myself am neurodivergent, and I personally don't have any children yet, but some of my friends do. And in particular, one of my close friends has a severely disabled son. So this topic hits a nerve for me quite deep, which is why I'm so passionate to ensure that every child in our great city gets all the support and help that they need from the earliest opportunity. And that's why, in particular, I support the Conservatives' policy to end the postcode lottery when it comes to support by delivering 60,000 more school places and an extra 15 free schools for special educational needs. And I want to see that Derby gets its fair share of these extra spaces. I also support the transformation and modernisation of autism and learning disability services across the United Kingdom and here in Derby. And if elected as your Member of Parliament for Derby South, believe me, I will battle day and night to ensure that Derby gets its fair share of funding from central government on this issue.
Thank you, Jamie. Tim.
To fix the problem, we need to understand it. And right now, we're not actually looking to understand it. In some schools in this city, 50% of the children are registered as special educational needs. Why? Nobody's looking. And we need to investigate what is going on. I used to work at the Office of National Statistics on the Congenital Anomaly Register, which is birth defects. And we are not even using the tools at our disposal to find out what is really happening. And we need to make sure that we do. Secondly, the council is in a terrible position with funding. As we've mentioned already, it is now underfunded by the government and struggling to make ends meet, and all the services that can be cut have been cut, as you would have noticed. This is really harmful, particularly to people with special needs. We need to properly fund the councils to resolve this situation. But also we need to make good use of our money. Again, we're back to this because there was one child in this city the other year that, without any particular health problems or any legal costs, his care alone cost the city £2 million for one child. The top 10 children in this city cost the city over £8 million to care for 10 children. We have removed the children's care homes from this city. We have removed the adult care homes in this city that the council operates, and we are now beholden to private companies who are ripping it out of this council and this government, this city, like there's no tomorrow, and we need to solve that problem.
Thank you, Tim. Sam.
Thank you. I've said it a few times today, but they're underfunded. Schools are underfunded. They need more money, and so do SEND providers. We've got a generation of children coming out of COVID, going back into formal education. I know there's difficulties that teachers are dealing with that as well. And what we need to be doing is doing a full assessment of SEND provision in this city and in the country as well, and understanding where those financial gaps are, which providers are struggling, which schools are struggling geographically and can't get the access that they need and the provision that they need, and ensuring that we're plugging those gaps. We're giving them that investment, we're giving them the money they need. We ensure that schools have got the access and the requirements they need as well. We, as Green Party, want to ensure that every single school in the UK has disability access, so nobody is put off, nobody has the inability to go to school if they're not able-bodied. And ultimately, I'm a project manager. My entire life is based on talking to people, understanding problems and finding solutions to them. So what we need to be doing is talking to teachers, talking to parents, understanding what their concerns are, what they're worried about, and what they want to do to make things better. And we need to find some solutions to support children, support everybody who needs, those requirements. Thank you.
Sam. Chris.
Well, the simple answer again is to reverse the cuts, and I think most of the panel would agree with that. But I think there's a wider issue at stake here, really, and one of the reasons why many of the children, need SEND provision, I think, are, even if you massively increase the funding for SEND, if you didn't actually address the wider problems in society. In other words, what we need to do is to create a good society, actually. I think that would then reduce the call on that particular service. But how do we go about reversing the cuts? Well, I think there are tools available. Obviously, the government has denuded local authorities of the funding that they need. But I think we need to rediscover the spirits of municipal socialism. The Derbyshire's renowned for that. We go back to the 1970s with the Claycross rent rebels, when Margaret Thatcher took away the milk from the kids. They found an innovative way of continuing to provide milk for school children. When David Buckbinder was the leader of Derbyshire County Council, disabled people moved to Derbyshire because of the quality of the service provision that was being provided there. David Buckbinder pioneered community education in Derbyshire. That's a sort of spirit, I think, that we need to rediscover. And there are powers available to local authorities to reverse the cuts by asking the rich people in Derby to pay considerably more in order to stop the cuts from actually continuing. I think that's the way that we ought to be looking at this.
Thank you, Chris. We're going to move now to our final question, which asks you to imagine yourself having had the privilege of representing this great city for 5 years for a parliamentary term. And the question is, what do you hope your legacy would be in 5 years' time? And how can working with faith communities help you achieve this?
Well, there are things that I want to get done for Derby if I am elected, but there is a wider aim. And some of you may have read my leaflet, you may have heard me speak about the fairer, greener and safer Derby that I want to see, with a local economy thriving, NHS and public services back off their knees, the city centre transformed and safer, raw sewage dumping tackled, and Great British Railways, which with Labour would be rail back in public ownership, with its headquarters here, effectively the rail capital of Britain, an end to the boom and bust that we've seen costing so many rail jobs this year. So yes, there are lots that I want to get done. And I've always worked with faith communities and would rely upon your wisdom and community links and volunteerism. But it will take time. So by doing what I say I'm going to do, I hope that it's not a great legacy, not a great big plan, but I hope that by doing what I say I'm going to do, that I will start, if only by a little, to earn trust back in politics again.
Emily, I've just realised this is a bit of a difficult question because you're representing your candidate, but as best you can.
As best I can. So if I was lucky enough to see my friend John Sweeney get elected, he would be working tirelessly for a fairer deal for Derby. He will want to see all our carers, all the people who care for people in society, be acknowledged and to actually get the support they need. We'd see a better, greener society with better active travel, as our colleague over there has talked about. He'd want to just help everybody be doing better, because we all need to do better. And how do we do that with the faith communities? We keep talking to you. We keep our links with you. We keep hearing what you're hearing, because you are the people with the fingers on the pulse. You know where the difficulties are, and whether that's in this church or any of the other churches in Derby, whether that's in the Gurdwaras, whether that is in the mosques, whether that is in the Hindu temple, we want to hear from all of them, because all the faithful people of Derby do wonderful work.
Thank you, Emily. Jamie, your legacy in 5 years.
So, for me, I think it can be summed up in one word, which is service. So my family, more than others, I think, know what it means to serve our country. Everybody in my family has either served in the armed forces or in the police. So I've taken public service slightly differently, much to the disappointment of my mum and my dad, but hey-ho. But for me, it's all about service. Public service for public good, and good policy makes good politics. Because for me, there are some people on all sides of politics who kind of get it, right? which is how do we sustain long-term productivity in this country to ensure that the youth of today have a future and that we can provide security for those in old age. That, for me, is the big challenge that we as a country face going forward for the next 10, 20, 30 years. Now, how am I going to sort of achieve the solutions to that? Well, by working with as many different communities, whether it be faith communities, whether it just be charitable organisations, and by working with the great public of Derby South. That's how I'm going to achieve it.
Thank you, Jamie. Tim.
I'm going to answer slightly backwards to the question, but our faith communities continuously surprise me and blow me away with the incredible work that they do. Whether it's the pure scale of the Hope Centre from Derby City Church, or whether it's Derby City Mission, or whether it's the work of the Food for Thought Alliance, which spreads out the food banks throughout the city through all sorts of religious buildings. But also I see this with Community Action Derby and the Livers Trust, where the faith groups are the main binders and builders of the support network within this city. And we need to support and encourage that. So that's really important. We're doing an amazing job, and we've just never underestimate the job that we do there. But we can always do better, and we need to fund it properly and actually try and do something from a government perspective to make that happen. But also, secondly, my legacy. Right now, we've got British people paid for by the British government firing British weapons over the border into Russia. This is really serious. We've never been closer to another world conflict than we are right now. And I want to look back and say I played my part in securing peace and prosperity for this country. Because if we don't act fast, all of this is pointless. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Sam.
So I think the legacy for not just me, but for us, the Green Party as a whole, is the legacy of wanting to help people and wanting to support people and wanting to improve people's lives. The whole basis of the Green Party is based on sort of social justice and making steps and in choosing policies that are going to improve people's lives, give you the support you need, and essentially push the world to be a better place and a better place that we want to live in. I think supporting faith centres like here and all the other faith centres across Derby is a fantastic way of doing that. Supporting you guys to do, sorry to fly there, supporting you guys to do the already brilliant job that you guys do. And I think it's a fantastic legacy to have that say, you know, we helped to improve people's lives, and that was our key focus on doing that. And, you know, at the end of the day, even if we don't get more green voices in Parliament, at least we can have the legacy of saying we really did try to help people and support people and improve their lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Chris.
Well, I think the legacy that I would like to leave behind is that I have made a difference both individually and collectively. Individually in terms of casework, and I had a very nice compliment from someone when I was previously the MP who came and thanked me before the meeting start to this evening with an issue that I assisted him with. And that was something that I particularly enjoyed when I was a member of Parliament, doing that casework and being able to make a difference for people by simply having those two initials after my name. But I think the other really important thing is to build try to build a difference collectively, and to, if you like, rebuild a sense of social solidarity, and the faith community can play a big part in that. But ultimately, I'd like to see a situation where it doesn't have to rely on the faith communities to actually provide support for vulnerable people in our city. These are things that should be provided by the state, and that is what I will fight for if I'm elected as the next MP for Derby South.
Thank you, Chris. So we've put our candidates through a grilling covering most areas of public life, and we're going to afford them, because we've stuck to time, the opportunity to make some concluding remarks. And people sitting in front of you are people who come with live issues that they care about in these two constituencies. So as much as you can, address your concluding opportunities and take concluding remarks. Take the opportunity to speak right into their concerns. And again, we're going to start with Catherine.
I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank all of you for coming, and to thank the other candidates for showing up as well, and to St Alkmund's for hosting, and all of the volunteers who made it possible. I think the greatest danger to our democracy is apathy. And I know that as you've showed up, you do not feel apathetic, but we will all have heard it. And if everyone believes that nothing you do ever changes anything, everyone stops trying. But we will only get change if we vote for it. And I know that the community here will never give up on our city and will never give up on our country, and neither will I. And I know that the communities that we have across Derby will always strive for change and to make things better. And so will I. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me and allowing me to represent the Liberal voice in this city. I would like to say that every vote matters. As Catherine says, apathy is a horrendous thing when it comes to a democracy like ours. And so every vote matters. And what I would say is that you may think that your vote does not count, but your vote speaks volumes. Vote with your heart. Vote for the policies that sound like they are the best ones for us, for you. Because that will give a message to whoever does win that that is the kind of thing that this city supports. So whether it's Derby South and it's Joe Nater or John Sweeney in Derby North, I encourage you to vote for the Liberal Democrats if that is what you think.
Thank you so much, Emily. Jamie.
Oh, well, thank you very much, everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure and treat to address you all this evening. I've had an absolute blast. And I will finish with what I started with, which the reason why I'm sat before you this evening is because I fundamentally believe that conservatism is a cause and not a career. It is the cause of opportunity, of equality of opportunity, of aspiration, of unleashing the awesome entrepreneurial ambition that our country and our city has. And that's what I will endeavour to do if I'm elected as the Member of Parliament for Derby South, if you are fantastic enough to give me the opportunity to serve you and our glorious city. So please, on the 4th of July, do vote for the Conservative and Unionist Party. It would be absolutely fantastic. But I would also just reiterate that there is a feeling of apathy at the moment. So I would ask, regardless of your political persuasion, do go and vote, do go and put a cross in the ballot box, because your vote, your voice is never, ever wasted.
Thank you, Jamie. Tim.
I want to not say the word apathy. It's not going to happen. The cause of apathy on our politics appears to be because for quite a while now, politicians have acted with impunity, ignored the people of this country, and have not been held to account. They have not been jailed for their crimes. They have not been held to account in the House of Parliament. And we have a terrible situation whereby we now have apathy. And nobody really wants to vote because nobody trusts the system. And we need to solve that problem. We need to hold our politicians to account, and that is why I'm here. I'm here to do exactly that. Make sure that these people that have run this country into the ground get held to account so that we can move on and make a change. And without that change, it will continue. So that's what we're after, change, real change, seed change within government. And right now, actually, it appears that that's happening. There has never been an election like that in my lifetime. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Sam.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone for coming and listening to me talk for a bit about the Green Party. I mean, ultimately, a vote for the Green Party is a vote for change. It's a vote for a progressive, forward-thinking party that truly understands the needs of this country and the investment needs that it needs. It's an investment in the NHS, it's an investment in our communities, in our infrastructure, our industries. And, just keeping it short, Derby was the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution, and a vote for the Green Party on the 4th of July is the opportunity for Derby to be the birthplace of the Green Revolution. And I'd love to see that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Chris.
Well, democracy should be about giving people a choice, but that choice has been denied the population of this country for many years, really, now, if we're honest about it, because there is not really a cigarette paper between the mainstream political parties now. They're both signed up to neoliberal economics, they're both in the pockets of the military-industrial complex. And so we are facing a crossroads, I think, in this election. Do we want more of the same? Do we want to continue down a path which has led to 14.5 million people living in poverty, which has led to illegal wars, which has led to Britain continuing to fund the genocide in Gaza through providing military equipment, that's continued to fund the NATO proxy war in Ukraine, which has slaughtered tens of thousands of people? Or do we want a different way? Do we want a different route, a different economic route, a different foreign policy route? That's what's on offer from the Workers' Party. And although we aren't fielding enough candidates to form a government at the next election, what is very clear is that if Workers' Party candidates are elected in this election, we will be the real opposition. We will be the voice of the people against the injustices that so many people are so concerned about today.
Thank you, Chris. Well, we're coming towards the end of our programmed time, but there is plenty of time left for us to use this space for you to meet these candidates and their representatives and for you to put your questions to them. The only political pressure of the evening has been applied consistently, irritatingly, by a fly that has affected all the candidates, I think, equally. And my thanks to them for carrying on regardless. I find it encouraging that whilst all of our opinions on these areas of public life will be different and divergent, I find it deeply encouraging that candidates are willing to step up and ask for your vote. And I find it deeply encouraging that you have all come out tonight because you are engaged on these issues too. We wanted to find a way, because you've been listening really well, and thank you so much for doing that throughout this evening so far. We wanted to find a way to sort of indicate if this evening's responses, answers to questions from the candidates have changed your mind in any way. And that could possibly be changing your mind on your approach to some of these policy issues, or perhaps change your mind on who you might ultimately cast your vote for. So in a few moments, I'm just going to invite you to raise your hand if anything said tonight has caused you to change or rethink your mind in relation to this election. So let's do that now. Thank you. I would love you to show your appreciation for these candidates and their representatives. This election hustings has been organised by Derby City Deanery, which is the collective noun, if you like, for the group of Anglican churches in the city centre, and with Derby City Vision working in close partnership. And I'd like to reiterate my thanks for members of the Deanery leadership team and team here at St Alkmund's for organising logistics, and to Simon Shaw from Derby City Vision for your hard work on making it possible for these candidates and this group from the public to gather here this evening to engage with some really important and timely issues. So everyone, give yourselves an applause. And now you get to duck out of these lights and avoid the fly and just position yourselves around the room and do engage with this, your electorate. Thank you.